Chapter 2, Settling In. Rule number 1, I require 2 rooms. One will be for my beauty sleep, the other for special purposes. This basement seems perfect for the latter, so as long as you can supply the former we are golden. Alex began. John had a spare bedroom in his house she could use, so this rule could be forgotten. Rule number 2, no entering said rooms without permission. John didn't like this as much, more for being denied entry to the basement in case he wanted to store something away or had to check the fuses and such. Rule number 3, I require moments of cuddling and snuggling for at least an hour every other day. Sexual intercourse and acts of sexual nature will be at my choosing. I am fond of my summoner begging though. This grabbed John's attention. It had been a long time since he had sex, just the mention of possibly getting some got him excited. Rule number 4, I am always the big spoon. Another rule that John could, if he had to play little spoon just to have fun with this hot piece, would be worth it. Rule number 5, I am allowed to add rules as I see fit, as long as these rules do not make the game unwinnable for you. Alex stopped and flipped a page on a clipboard. Those are the rules that apply specifically to me. Now for your rules. Rule number 1, no swearing, yelling, stomping, hitting or anything that may be deemed as a tantrum. Whining is permitted but limited to however I see fit. Rule number 2, you will eat any food I put in front of you. Said food will of course be edible and will not harm you, make you sick or otherwise endanger your health. I want my big man to be happy for his din-dins, not dreading it. Rule number 3, you will be required to have a bedtime of 9 p.m. I am allowed to change this depending on good or bad behavior. Rule number 4, you will be required to have a nightlight in your room. Do not remove this. Rule number 5, you will be required to dress however I wish. Any fussing and I may deem it a tantrum. Rule number 6, I will give you chores. Failure to perform these chores will result in immediate punishment. You will be required to follow all these rules. Reminder, I may and will add rules as I see fit. At times I go by a 3-strike or 3-count rule before any punishment is doled out. Sound fair? Alex asked. Fine, but those rules fucking stupid, John said and noticed her eye twitch. That's one. Alex chimed, giving John a smile. John cursed himself for breaking a rule already. If any of the rules were going to be hard, it was not swearing. John used swear words casually. The people around him never really got offended by it. He tried to not use it to offend people, which may be why they never said anything. How about we start things off with a bit of food and some TV, get to know each other better, Alex suggested and moved close to John, an arm wrapping gently around his waist and pushing him up the stairs. John blushed as she escorted him, all while she gently stroked his arm. It had been some time since he had been so close to a woman, and the rule of cuddling her swam in his mind. He was more than a little excited at the thought of it happening soon. John helped Alex to the kitchen. She happily clapped her hands and made herself comfortable. In a small flash of pale blue flames, her outfit changed to include an apron. She now looked more like a busy mom than before. She examined the state of the kitchen. Piles of dishes in the sink and crumbs and stains covered the table. Alex simply smiled and turned to John. Okay sweetie, can you do the dishes while I clean the table? The sooner you get me a nice clean pot, the sooner I will make us some lunch, okay? She asked. John gave a sigh and grumbled as he started the water and began to clean the dishes. Lunch was ready. John didn't get a chance to see what Alex was cooking. When he finished the dishes, she ushered him to the living room and waited. Alex walked into the living room with a set of bowls. Pink and blue flames danced about before John, creating small tables for Alex to set them on. John looked at the food. Macaroni and cheese? He asked. Mac and cheese. Alex burst with joy, snatching the remote away from John and shoving a fork to replace it. Alex turned the channel over to some children's cartoons and with a sigh began to eat. John took a bite of his food. It was good, but the scene felt childish. Why are you watching this? He asked. We are watching Blue's Clues. I love putting on these shows. You should find them interesting too. We will be watching these at lunch every day, Alex said with a big smile which turned a bit mischievous. Let's make that a rule actually. You can watch whatever in the morning and evening while at lunch we get this small moment of time to enjoy these kinds of shows. She said. John gave a huff. Alex was already starting to establish her place here. When are you going to improve my job? He asked. I need time and power, sweetie. Speaking of which, after lunch I will set up my rooms and after that you and I will have a nap, she said and then moved close so her lips were close to his ear. A bit of cuddling, maybe even heavy petting, become familiar with each other, she whispered, her hand gently rubbing his thigh. He felt her fingers inch closer and closer to his crotch, his manhood becoming erect. Alex smiled and pulled away. John began to hurry to eat. The sooner they were done the sooner to the promised fun. He finished his food but Alex was taking her time. John watched as she slowly ate her food. He tried to go find something else to do but Alex stopped him. He sat there half watching the show, half watching her. The thought of sex plaguing his mind. She must have used some kind of magic because he was more desperate than ever. Alex seemed to get joy out of watching him squirm. She deliberately made small moans, licked the cheese off her fork in an overtly sexual manner any way possible to exude the small part of her nature. By the time she was done it had been maybe 4 shows worth. Okay, if you can set the couch up for a small nap while I dash. John was half across the room and gone before she could finish her sentence. Alex went about setting up her 2 rooms she wanted. It didn't take long. With the bit of power she had left she would need a long cuddle session to get back what had been used today. John was waiting for her when she returned, his jeans sporting a little tent. He was far too eager for this. Alex settled into the couch and pulled John down with her. He moved in to kiss her but she stopped his lips from reaching hers. We are just cuddling, she said, feeling him start to dry hump her. My goodness, settle down, is this how you would treat a normal girl? She asked. She knew he couldn't help it. Her aura as a succubus wasn't terribly strong but it was present, enough for man to want to get close but not so much he would want to have sex. However, John's reaction was most likely because he hadn't had sex in a long time and now here was a woman exuding a sexual presence to him. His lips kept trying to find some exposed skin, his hands groped at her and his hips couldn't stop grinding into her. She tried to calm him down and get him to relax but he kept trying to excite her. Stop, she spoke firmly and demandingly while she held his chin, looked deep in his eyes and held him there. If I let you get all that pent-up energy out, promise to be a good boy and listen to mommy. She asked, her free hand gently rubbing at his crotch. John nodded, he wanted this so bad. Then beg. Please, he begged, please let me fuck you, please let me have sex, I'll be good, I'll listen to you, I'll do what you say, just please. He begged. Alex grinned and let him beg a bit more. Say please mommy, she ordered. Please mommy, he obeyed. Say please mommy, I wanna make big boy squirties, she smiled and watched him. John hesitated a moment. The words were stupid and it made things a bit awkward. Her hand had made its way into his pants and grasped him, urged him on, promised him of heated passion and desperate release. He couldn't take much more of this, his lust breaking his pride. Please mommy, I want to come. Say it right. She demanded, squeezing harder on him, getting him close but keeping him from climaxing. Please mommy, I wanna make big boy squirties. Good boy, she purred and pulled him into a deep heated kiss. Come fuck mommy, she gasped. Her hand deftly undoing his belt and letting him free. As their clothes were stripped away she took note of his nudity, barely any hair across body save for his pubic hair, his penis was below average, she smiled and took note of that. She praised for how big he was and made him feel like there was no one better. Their carnal bliss helped fuel her power a bit and she used it to satisfy the dry spell he had 10 times over. A few hours were spent satisfying his sexual urges. They were well worn out afterwards. Now let's try this again. Alex said with a snap of her fingers. Flames burned any trace of their lovemaking. They were given a pair of pajamas, blue for him and pink for her. Alex settled onto the couch and pulled John down with her. She held him close and situated herself. "Comfy?" she asked. John nodded. She gently stroked his shirt and rubbed his back. "Just close your eyes and get some rest," she said and began to hum a lullaby to him. "Why are you singing?" John groaned. "Sure, you had your fun, let me have mine, just try and sleep," she said softly and resumed her song. This was where Alex gained her power, comforting someone, her fingers combing their hair, a hand gently rubbing their back, settling in for a nap. She produced a stuffed bear and placed it on his arms. John groaned, but she hushed him. "Just hold it, that's a good boy," she whispered and began to sing again. After a time she soon fell asleep.